folks, I spent 3 years in Rome in sweltering heat, and they told me after a couple of weeks I'd climatize. Never happened, and it still hasn't happened. So if you see me passing out, just leave me be, just throw me to the side and just keep going. But folks, isn't it amazing the gospel passages like this, when they crop up, those little details, like for example today, Jesus, he calls Martha twice, not once, but twice. Now at first glance that might seem trivial and kind of just a literary type of thing. But look what Martha's doing. She's distracted. She's jumping like a ping pong ball from one thing to the next. And Jesus is trying to get her attention, as anyone would in real life. He had to say it twice because she's so distracted. I love those little details because they ring so true to real life. Folks, how many of us, when we receive the Eucharist, run out of the church to start the dinner? Or we run out of the church to watch Limerick play Kilkenny? Or just sit here waiting impatiently for Mass just to be finished, tapping the knee or whatever? Because look at folks, in a few moments, all of us are going to be offered to consume Christ's living flesh in the Eucharist. A little moment where Jesus literally enters into you and me physically. Quite extraordinary. And what do? Most of us get distracted. And I'm no different. We think about tomorrow, we think about later on, or we think about yesterday, things gone past. Missing the fact that the Saviour is right in front of us, waiting for us to spend some quality time with him in silence and in prayer. Because folks, look, it's true that disasters can await us when we start getting distracted. And man, are we a distracted people in today's world. A distracted nation, a distracted society, very much a distracted church at the moment, and even distracted as individuals. I mean, there's a plethora of voices, all demanding our attention 100%, pulling us one way or the other. And what happens when we have so many voices pulling us one way or the other? We end up listening to absolutely none of them whatsoever. We listen to no one. That's why, if you notice, the attention spans nowadays is almost zero, which is quite serious and has very much seriously real-world effects and consequences in our lives. I mean, it's to the point where a lot of our young people even, they become detached from reality itself. Restless minds, restless hearts. It's what happens when our lives become void of meaning, a sense of real hope, a sense of truth. When those things are shoved to the side or disappeared or covered over by something else, disaster usually strikes. But seriously, folks, how many families nowadays are able to sit at a table, either in the home or at a restaurant, and talk to each other, actually talk to each other, listen to each other, what the other person is saying, rather by just pretend to listen, but you have something else that you want to say afterward, but actually listen to what the person is saying. Or someone might be sitting in a different room watching TV while they have the dinner in their lap, while everybody else is in the dining room or whatever, the kitchen. Screens, no matter how big or how small, folks, they have really seriously opened our lives to all sorts of vices and distractions, most of which are not good. That's why so many families, they now live together, but they don't know each other. Parents don't know their children, children don't know their parents, children don't know their siblings either. As a result, with such a lack of unity, what happens? Division can set in very, very fast because there's no unity. They don't know each other. And who's the father of distraction? Who's the father of division? Satan. Anything to distract you from sitting down and spending quality time with your loved ones, or especially with Christ, that is pure demonic. That is not good. Genuine evil, real spiritual influences, folks, that have very real world implications. That's why there's tremendous division in our world at the moment, particularly socially. So much unrest in the heart and in the mind. Families divided, communities divided. Our church is becoming more and more divisive. Why? Because the voice of Satan has gotten in, pure and simple, has smothered the voice of God in so many people's hearts. And we've allowed this because we don't spend time with Christ anymore. We're too distracted. We choose our own agendas, our own opinions, my truth, my reality, all that stuff. We don't choose the better part, which Mary does in our gospel this afternoon, because she knows when she spends time with Jesus Christ, the fullness of truth, the fullness of beauty and love can be found All those good things that really fulfill us, pure and simple. That's the same with the church at the moment. How many of us can sit for a period of time in prayer and not get fidgety, scratching, moving around, look at the phone, who's texting me? Oh, another vibration. Who is it now? Little things like that. Spending time in front of the Eucharist is the most beautiful opportunity we have. The same opportunity as Mary does in our gospel today. To sit at the feet of Jesus and listen to him. Just listen to him in our hearts. To be in his presence and to focus on him alone just for a few moments. It's a sure sign, folks, that there's something off in your soul if you cannot sit still in prayer for a little while, can't rest, can't be calm in the presence of Jesus Christ, particularly in the Eucharist, or listening to his voice in the Holy Scriptures. The church today is in absolute crisis mode, if you noticed. Not difficult to notice. When we're in crisis mode, we start entering martyr mode, I would call it. When crisis hits, instead of running around and changing rules and changing teachings in a vain effort to get fixed, which, by the way, is a very bad way of governance and management, by trying to change all sorts of things just to get fixed in a crisis, the opposite should be happening. To bed down, to dig in, and start, for God's sake, paying attention to Christ, who is in front in each and every one of us so often. Instead, we're running around setting up committees, this group, that meeting, most of which are an absolute pointless and waste of time, because most of them have zero fruit. They lead to absolute nothing, only a waste of time, sitting around in circles singing Kumbaya. Doesn't lead to anything. How many of us have fallen into martyr mode, really? And it's not just the church, but in our own family, in our homes as well. Not only is Martha completely distracted from Jesus to the point where he has to repeat her name twice to get her attention, but she does something even worse. She starts to tell Jesus what to do. Jesus, what are you doing? Tell her to get up and give me a hand. Do you not care what I'm doing here? Starts telling the Lord what to do. How many of us, folks, in our prayer, tell God what to do? Keep yapping to Christ. Lord, do this. Lord, do that. Don't you care about me or my loved ones anymore? Folks, all of you are called to be saints. Not some airy-fairy metaphorical thing. You're called to be saints, to be transformed into a living saint. And we do that by paying attention to Christ in our life, which what Marion proclaimed a few moments ago, what St. Paul writes about, having the vision to be able to witness and to pay attention to Christ whose mystery is among you. Christ who is among you. Pay attention to that. And folks, that's how we become saints, paying attention to Jesus. Focusing on Jesus Christ gives our lives a decisive direction, and it raises our hearts to what is good, what is fulfilling, elevates our minds to what is truthful and what is beautiful. And then we don't end up wasting our hearts, wasting our minds, wasting our lives on false, worldly, feel-good philanthropy. This is really serious, and it's not a joke. And it has massive ramifications in our lives and in our souls if we don't pay attention to Jesus Christ, which is what we're seeing in our world today. So many people, more and more, becoming detached from reason and from reality. So my friends, my point today is very simple. Be careful. I really mean this. Be careful. Be careful what distracts you and whose voices you're listening to that pull you away from Christ and your loved ones, because they are most certainly not on your side.